Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and I'm here with Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive, and some other key people that I'm going to be introducing. But mostly I'm here with the members of the Police Advisory Board for Westchester County. We're very grateful for their time and energy and effort, which they're providing on a volunteer basis to serve as a very important liaison between the community at large and our Westchester County Department of Public Safety, aka the County Police. I'm going to introduce each of them in a few minutes and have each of them tell you a little bit about who they are and what their background is, so that you'll see we have a diversity of talent and diversity of experience that's been brought together to provide this important function. And it's particularly important now because as we look at issues that involve the criminal justice system, people are very concerned about their safety, and they want to know that we're doing everything we can to protect their safety, and at the same time make sure that our operation in doing so is just and fair. And that is a balancing point that we try very hard to meet, and I'm very, very happy that these individuals have agreed to continue their public service to help us accomplish that mission. In a few minutes, Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins will share a couple of his thoughts on this. We also are joined here by Commissioner Michael Orth of our Department of Community Mental Health, and he is a tremendous professional working very closely with the police department in the efforts that we have through Project Alliance, mental health crisis response teams. Also with us here in the studio is Westchester County Legislator David Tubiolo, who's very active as a legislator on matters that relate to law enforcement. We appreciate his leadership in the legislative body. And also Joseph Glazer, who's the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Community Mental Health, is with us as well, plus some members of my executive team, Chris Steers, Ellen Hendricks, and others. The Westchester County Police Advisory Board was created back in 1979, and through the act of a Board of Legislators. It is charged with working directly with the Commissioner Sheriff of our county's Department of Public Safety, and they do an oversight function and an opportunity to look at the operations of the department and check the various statistical reports that come in, and to help us with policies and ideas that are necessary for us in order to provide the best possible effort in public safety. We have a professional force of over 300 sworn officers, and we have a leadership team, command and control leadership team within the Department of Police, but we also want to have people from the community who have different backgrounds, who bring a different point of view into the discussions that we have, so that we're sure that we're getting as close to the right public policy as we can. The appointments for the Police Advisory Board are made by myself as County Executive, although a couple of the members were appointed by my predecessor, and they serve periods of terms that expire. They are reviewed and approved by the members of the Board of Legislators, and we look to the Board of Legislators for appointment recommendations as well to try to get the largest, most possible group of people. I'm going to identify the names of the individuals who are here, and then I'm going to introduce the chair of our advisory board, and then from there we'll have each of the different members say a few words so you get a chance to see who they are and a little bit about their background. We're very pleased to have Leroy Frazier, who's an attorney at law. He is chair of the Westchester County Police Advisory Board. He has taken on that responsibility after we had a very sad loss of a good friend and an outstanding chair of this board, Lawrence Otis Graham, who was a very accomplished individual, a prominent author, and again, a personal friend. And he had served under previous administration and now under our term of office. But with his passing, we reached out to Leroy Frazier. Leroy is a former co-chair of our Police Advisory Board, Police Reform Review Task Force, which included Mayo Bartlett as a co-chair, and we'll talk a little bit more about Leroy in just a second. The other folks who are here, each of whom will be introduced to you, we have Peter Kamenstein is with us here today, Paul Hood, Carola Bracco, Olney Reynolds, Lori Belfiore, and Richard Wishney. And Richard joined this board before we asked him to take on the responsibilities as the commissioner of our Department of Emergency Services. So he is wearing two hats, even though he's wearing no hat at all, as part of our operation. But we're very grateful to have his leadership as well. In asking Leroy Frazier to take on the responsibilities of this board, we were able to get a Westchester resident, I believe a resident of Pelham, who has a long and distinguished career as a dedicated public servant. He has been involved with his background in the law as a prosecutor and as an advocate. He has had 38 years of experience in Manhattan, New York County, and also in Kings County, Brooklyn, where he has worked as a prosecutor with some of the greatest names that we're aware of in that field of endeavor. The great Robert Morgenthau, who was district attorney for Manhattan for many, many years successfully. He served as an executive for Honorable Cyrus Vance, who succeeded Bob Morgenthau, and he was chief of staff at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. Now, we have a large district attorney's office here in Westchester County. It is one of the most significant ones in the state, but both New York County and Kings County are much larger. And so the experience that Leroy has in those responsibilities has really given him a tremendous overview that helps us understand what it is we can do here in Westchester County. As I mentioned, he was co-chair of our county's Police Reform and Reimagining Committee. That task force, which included some of the people that are here as well, was comprised of county and local law enforcement professionals, members of the clergy, criminal justice and police reform advocates, human rights professionals. We had members of the clergy and other public servants to help us develop a blueprint for how we move forward. That committee submitted its report as was required by the state officials, but also in keeping with the mission that we had originally established before the state mandate came down, and had a total of 52 recommendations of things that we should implement. And as we've gone along in time, I think the Board of Legislators, when they adopted, added a couple of additional requirements, and we have almost completely filled every one of those issues. One of those major issues was the mental health crisis response team, which I assume Michael will talk about in a few seconds. But it was the leadership of Mayo Bartlett and Leroy Frazier that really was critical in steering this large, diverse group of people through what is admittedly a difficult dialogue to have. We had people representing different points of view in the criminal justice world, and they didn't intrinsically agree on things, but we were able to get a greater degree of consensus, and certainly all voices were heard in that process. And that's, I think, why our report was as generally well received as it was, and as we are going through the process of implementation. But that is a sample of Leroy's managerial skills, in addition to his legal skills and his prosecutorial skills. So we're very, very happy that he's taken on this responsibility, and we'll start, first of all, by hearing from him, the chair of the Westchester County Police Advisory Board, the Honorable Leroy Frazier. Leroy, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good afternoon. I want to say thanks to the county executive and also the deputy county executive and the staff for allowing me to have this opportunity to work here in Westchester County, where I have resided for about 27 years. I spent a lot of time, as the county executive just said, working in Manhattan and in Brooklyn. But I got to tell you, in the last 4 or 5 years since retirement, I have been nothing but impressed with the work that is being done here in Westchester County, both in police as well as corrections and probation. I see Westchester as setting a tone for how law enforcement and criminal justice can carry on or should carry on throughout the state. They're doing things here that are above and beyond what is required by the state in terms of their criminal justice agencies. And the training that they provide and the training that they added as a result of the work of the task force is tremendous, and it's something that should be applauded. I got to tell you, I'm happy to work with the police board. Having had a couple of meetings and met the people, I feel blessed. I'm happy that these are dedicated individuals. You'll hear from seeing them today. They're doing it, as the county exec said, because they want to, not because they're being paid to do it. They're doing it because they're dedicated not only to criminal justice, but to the community itself, to make sure that things are done properly. Our job is to review and advise, and we will do that not just based on all of the vast amounts of experience that we have, but also by looking beyond and around the country to see what others are doing, rejecting that will not fit, and advising and suggesting that people look at and try the things that are working as we move forward in this area of criminal justice. I'm going to stop now because I tend to talk a lot, but there's a number of individuals that must talk. So I'll just end by saying, again, I welcome the opportunity. I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to working with this fine group of individuals.
Thank you. Leroy Frazier, who chairs this board. In no particular order, I'm going to call on individuals, again, to share a little bit about their background and some of their vision. First, right next to me, I'm going to ask Carola Bracco to say hello. She is known as the very successful leader of Neighbors Link, based in Mount Kisco. She was already a member of our Census 2020 board and did tremendous work in that very successful project where we were able to get a more accurate census. But she's done so many things in her professional career, I'd rather have her tell you about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, County Executive. I'm Carola Bracco, and it's my privilege to serve as the Executive Director of Neighbors Link. It's also a privilege to be on the Police Advisory Board. Neighbors Link is a nonprofit organization. We serve to help the community integrate. We strengthen the whole community through the healthy integration of immigrants. So we offer a whole variety of programs that includes ESL education, workforce development, parent education, and we also offer cultural awareness training. And some of this training that we do is also with the police department. And so I'd like to talk for just a minute about community policing and thank certainly the county executive and the commissioner of the police for their focus on community policing strategies. To start, I just want to say that the community policing work that our police officers go through, the cultural awareness training includes in-classroom work as well as significant practical work. They do interactive role-playing, but they also spend time out in the community in facilitated sessions, working side by side with immigrant community members. And this work is so critical because it makes victims and witnesses more comfortable in stepping forward and partnering with police officers. So I want to thank very much the county executive and our commissioner of police for their focus on community policing work. Thank you.
Thank you, Carola. And I should point out that Carola, whose agency is headquartered in Mount Kisco, is one of the two communities where the Westchester County Department of Public Safety provides either all of or some of the local policing. Both Mount Kisco and Cortland have that relationship. So community policing in Mount Kisco is on the ground, Westchester County Police operating on a day-to-day basis. Next, I'd like to call on Olney Reynolds, who is a person with both professional business and public service background. We're very appreciative that he is with us here. I believe he was a recommendation from the Board of Legislators, but he's well respected on the 8th and the 9th floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. First, I want to thank the county executive and the deputy county executive for supporting my appointment to the board. It's something I really didn't seek out, but when I got the call, I was very happy to sign on, and it's been an excellent experience. So I want to get that out the way before I talk about myself. I'm a lifelong resident of Westchester County, so over 60 years, without going into how old I am. 30 years in the town of Greenburgh I see one of our Greenburgh Council women out there in the audience. Basically, my background is I worked for 20 plus years for Westchester County, basically out of the Parks Department. The main focus was special events and managing at the Westchester County Center. I left that to get into the private sector and public housing and affordable housing. Did that for the last 10 years before I retired. So in my retirement, most of my time is spent as Vice President of the African American Men of Westchester, of which Leroy is a member, and you heard Mayor Bartlett's name come up earlier. He's also a member. But we do a variety of programs for the community. I'm sure you've heard of the Martin Luther King event. I was fortunate enough to chair that when it was actually held at the Westchester County Center back in the Stone Age. The intersection of my work with the Park Police Board and with the African American Men is a criminal justice program we started a couple years ago in light of all the issues with the community and police, and we thought the best route would be to go to the schools directly or have the schools come to a common site where we bring in leaders in the criminal justice system and educate the students like they're not getting in the media, but actually how to deal with different sectors of the criminal justice system when you interact with it. What to do when the police pull you over, how to go into the courtroom. So we were fortunate. A couple of members of this board were also participants in this program. Leroy handled from the district attorney's office. Paul Hood will be coming up. He handled law enforcement.
And I could go through the names of the other people. You've heard of all of them, but I won't overuse my time. But again, that's a little something about me. And again, thank you for being a part of this.
Next, I'd like to invite to the microphone Peter Kamenstein. Peter is from the town of North Salem, which is the northeasternmost community in Westchester County, and he has served on the town board there, so he has had the experience of being in elective office, but he's done so much more than that in his professional life, his philanthropic life, and he is, I believe, the member of longest serving tenure on the board, and we're very happy that he continues to serve. Peter?
Thank you. Yes, as the county executive said, I'm Peter Kamenstein. I'm the deputy supervisor of the town of North Salem and have been for, I think, the last 12 years. And I've been on the police board now for, I think it's either 10 or 12 years, really not sure, but something like that. I'm very grateful both to the county executive and the deputy county executive for reappointing me to the board. And Erica Pierce, who is our legislator, I think was the one who nominated me for re-election this past term, and I'm very grateful to her. Prior to that, I was on the county's Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board. I think I was on there from its nascence and was on there for quite a while. The town of North Salem is extremely grateful to Westchester County for our collaboration. It's not only criminal, it's other things. Just a real quick story. About 2 months ago or so, there was a horse, quite frankly, that was in the woods and with a rider, and they took the wrong step and they started to sink into a mud hole. The rider managed to get off the horse, try and go for help, but had no idea whatsoever exactly where she was. Finally ended up at a place, where she could call for help. The horse was basically up to its neck in mud, couldn't move. Numerous departments from around the county responded, but the department that was most instrumental in rescuing the horse and finding the horse was the county's Department of Emergency Services. So it's not only people they deal with, okay, but it's wherever there is a problem. And, they were a tremendous help. And so we as a town are very, very grateful to our collaboration with the county. And I know I probably said enough, but thank you, County Executive and Deputy County Executive, and to all the members of the county's government. We really do appreciate the collaboration with our town.
Thank you, Peter. Next, I'm going to tap my friend Richard Wishney to come to the microphone. He is now serving us as Commissioner of the Department of Emergency Services, but his background, he and I go back 30 years when we both served in the Westchester County Board of Legislators together. Richard headed the Budget Appropriations Committee and did a brilliant job during his tenure there, has gone on to do other things. He's a prior Ossining Town Supervisor as well, so he's had executive experience in the public sector. And we even asked him to serve as acting chair of this board after the passage of Lawrence Otis Graham and before we were able to bring Leroy on board, and every assignment that he's been asked to do, he does so gracefully and graciously, and he does it brilliantly, and I'm very happy to call him my friend. Mr. Wishney.
Thank you, and good afternoon. It truly is an honor for me to continue to serve on the police board. No one, I shouldn't say no one knows this, but way back when I moved to Ossining in early 1970s, I started attending local town board meetings and got to know a little bit about the community, and then realized that the local police department, which at that time only had 7 members, could really use some help, and I suggested that there should be an auxiliary police department in the town of Ossining. And whenever you make a suggestion, you get appointed. So I became an auxiliary police officer back in the early 1970s and did that for a few years. Learned a lot about what police officers go through. And I've carried that lesson on throughout my career as a public official. I've been lucky enough to serve at the local, county, and state level. And it's really been a lifetime of not only service, but learning about the people we serve and how we can do good for people. And that's what it's all about. My friend George Latimer has been serving the public for a very long time. He does it with just wonderful grace, respect for people, always has the right thing to say at the right time. As you all know, in the past year, we've gone through some really difficult times. A plane crash with people dying in the plane here in Westchester County. Yesterday, the day before, we had this terrible incident with 5 youngsters being killed in a terrible, terrible crash. Our Department of Public Safety, the people that we serve with, were first on the scene. It was an awful scene, as you can imagine. And yesterday, when George talked to the public about what had happened, he did it in a way that showed compassion, not only professionalism as our county executive, but with compassion and concern, as he did during the plane incident. He always has the right thing to say at the right time. I respect him tremendously, and when he asks me to do something, I do it because he's such a good person. And all of us here share that same feeling. I want to tell you that the 300 men and women who serve as members of the Department of Public Safety serve with distinction. We get a chance once in a while to review complaints that come in from the public. It goes through a process. Those complaints are examined, evidence is taken, and 9 out of 10 times there is really not much for us to do as a board. But every once in a while, over the years, the board is given the opportunity to hear about a charge that may be sustained, and that it's up to the board to vote on a punishment. And we take that very seriously. And fortunately, it doesn't happen that often. We should all be very proud of the services that are provided by these 300 officers. We should also recognize that that service is available to all our local police departments who don't have the ability or the resources to provide those services on their own. The county does that for free and provides that service to all these communities. We represent over 1 million people in Westchester County. And I think under the leadership of George Latimer and Ken Jenkins and Joan McDonald and her team, they do a great job for us, and we are very, very fortunate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard Wishney, and everything you've said about me, I say about you. You've done a fabulous job, and we appreciate it. Next, I'd like to invite Lori Belfiore to be with us this year. She is experienced in the private sector, also part of a law enforcement experience and family, and brings her perspective to the table. Thank you, Lori.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Belfiore, and I also am a lifelong resident of Westchester County, and also will not say how long I've lived in Westchester County. I currently serve as interim general counsel for the New York Power Authority, and we are a very good business partner for Westchester County, looking to do all things renewable and decarbonize assets for a much healthier environment for everyone. In my prior life before joining the Power Authority, I was part of the county attorney's office and served with Westchester County for almost 2 decades. So it's very interesting to get insight into Westchester County Police because I was their counsel for that period of time. But in the duration, since I left Westchester County, it was great to be invited back by the board to serve on the police board and sort of get a different insight or a different perspective into the county police. It's great because it affords you an opportunity to, from a civilian perspective, to hear about conversations, to learn about the police business units and all of the different departments and assets, all of the different ways that they serve Westchester County citizenry. It's truly amazing, and I think most people do not understand the breadth of their experience and the wealth and knowledge that the police leadership and management have, and all of the different ways that they help their neighboring counties, even potentially neighboring states with MOUs, with equipment, and with their expertise, and always willing to lend a helping hand, always willing to help out someone, in need. It also gives us a unique opportunity to have a discussion with the leadership and to talk about challenges facing the police right now in a time of unrest, and to help them engage in conversations, to have, great relationships with the communities with which they serve. I have always been an advocate of the police department and of the police profession. I think it's a phenomenal profession, and I think that the police do a wonderful job of engaging with the communities. I think their leadership is very professional, and I am amazed every month that I come here and we have these conversations and we engage in discussions about the insights and the enthusiasm that they have for continuing to improve the police department. And I think it's a great tribute to the county and to the commitment and the dedication and the resources that they provide to the county police and to the police leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lori. We appreciate your service in this capacity as we do in the other capacities that you serve. Next, I'd like to introduce Paul Hood. Paul is a law enforcement professional by training, and he has experience in the world of corrections, amongst other things, and that is a very helpful balance point, because we see in our policing, in our corrections function, and in our probation function, different elements of how we deal with those that may find themselves interacting in the criminal justice system. So Paul brings a very important point of view to the table, along with his professionalism. Paul Hood.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Hood. It's a pleasure to be a part of this board. First, I'd like to thank the county executive and the deputy county executive for your appointment. When I got the phone call, I said, let me think about it. And the response was, there's nothing to think about. You're on the board. But it's a tremendous honor, and I love serving with everybody that you heard up here. I look forward to the meetings. And I bring a different perspective to the board because I am a retired law enforcement officer. I retired as a sergeant, and I worked in community policing. So I understand the aspects of it, and that it really does work, and that it takes all sides to work together to bring everybody together, because no one side can do it by themselves. And one of the things about our board and the county police is, that's one of the biggest things that we are trying to do, is bring everybody together. The community policing is very, very important. And that's something that we are really working on and trying to improve. And one of the other things that I said, I was a member of the Westchester County Police Reform Committee. And during our meetings, I always said the same thing. I said, well, one of the things about the county police is we are way ahead of the curve. Like the things that everybody else is trying to do, or where they're trying to get, the county police, they're there already. And another thing is, I always say, we refuse to rest on our laurels. We're always seeking other ways to improve, and new technology, and other ways to, improve or expand outreach into the communities. One other thing that I would like to add is, I'm also the president of Westchester Rockland Guardians, which is a organization of African-American law enforcement officers, professionals from police, corrections, and probation. And after the incident with George Floyd, we were the first ones. We did a big rally here in White Plains, and we invited everybody. And the main thing was, we wanted to bring everybody together. And I got a phone call from one of the police chiefs, and he said, should we wear our uniforms? And I said, absolutely. And the reason being is because I wanted everybody to see that we can do this together. I wanted everybody to be identified. That's very important. And with that, I'm going to close. I'm retired, but I'm not retired. I'm still working, doing the same work, because it's important. So I'm going to continue to do it because I love doing this, and I love being a part of this board. So thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much, Paul Hood. We are unable to have the pleasure of the company of Robert Tucker, who is also a member of the Police Advisory Board. He also is a member that has had some extended tenure. He is a resident of Scarsdale, is experienced in the security industry from his past experience, also has experience as a former assistant district attorney in Queens, and he also brings some important perspectives. So the diversity of the different backgrounds of the people we have here is really essential for all of these things. I want to just offer to Michael Orth, who is our Commissioner of Community Mental Health, to see if he has any comments that he'd like to share as we enter forward.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Orth, and I have the privilege of serving as Commissioner, Westchester County Department of Community Mental Health. And we're a branch of county government that has responsibility for the mental health, substance use, and developmental disabilities system in Westchester County. And I've had the privilege of serving in the Department of Community Mental Health for over 29 years. And I have to say, the work that we're doing together with Reimagining Police, and I'll get into Project Alliance, has been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my career, thanks to the stakeholders and partners who've come together. As the county executive mentioned, one of the 52 recommendations of Reimagining Police report was specifically around a behavioral health, mental health crisis response. And just in society, if there's a fire, you call the fire department. If there's a safety issue, you call police, law enforcement. And if there's a medical issue, you call EMS. That doesn't exist for mental health throughout the nation. And thanks to the vision of the Reimagining Police, we then created a Project Alliance task force, which really consisted of county departments, local law enforcement, but also people with lived experience who've been directly impacted or had family members who've had a crisis and involved a police response. So we met for about 4 or 5 months and came up with 5 significant areas to focus on. And I just want to give a brief overview, because this is sort of a celebration, I think, also on our accomplishments. One of the recommendations was to create mobile crisis response teams throughout the entire county, embedded in 8 police departments serving the entire community. So we actually now have agencies with full mental health teams of peers, of mental health practitioners, certified alcoholism counselors that are available 24/7 and are actually embedded in the local police department. I'm proud to report that since the real launch and start of that in July of 2022, we've served over 6,745 individuals who started with a call to the police department, and a collaborative response existed. These are people with mental health crises. These are young people. These are our seniors. These are people who perhaps are homeless or who had a domestic violence situation or struggling with substances. We are out there co-responding with the police, and out of those 745 individuals, we did follow-up for over 60% of those individuals. Because one of the things we heard from our police department is we send them to a service and they're right back experiencing the challenges. So our mobile crisis teams actually follow up with these individuals and their families to make sure that they're continuing with services. The other important initiative is the 911 diversion program. We heard from our dispatchers that they often get many calls that are a mental health crisis or substance use crisis, and as good as they are, as qualified as they are, they don't have the experience to really address those situations. So thanks to our county executive, our deputy county executive, our board of legislators, we created a crisis network line here locally at St. Vincent's Hospital, where dispatchers can call our crisis network 24 hours, 7 days a week to get a professional to help them through that experience. And out of the 743 calls that were made, 300, actually the crisis network team responded directly in person to help that individual. And finally, one of the other components is the 988 Suicide National Hotline. As many of us know, we came to a 988 call line to make it easier for people who needed that resource. And once again, thanks to our county, we invested resources to have a local 988 right here in Westchester answering calls 24/7. And I want you to hear these numbers: 2,833 Westchester residents at some point call that line because either their family members or themselves were perhaps contemplating suicide or struggling with mental health issues, and they call that line to get help. 2,833 individuals in Westchester County. So these are some of the wonderful components of Project Alliance. This could not have been done without the local police departments, the municipalities, our county departments, and the agencies that are providing the support. And finally, training. Thanks to the our Department of Public Safety and our Department of Mental Health, we offer crisis intervention training for all new recruits in Westchester County. That's 40 hours of training on behavioral health, mental health. And we've also we've trained 86 law enforcement first responders just in this past 6 months. And we're also now training EMS and fire who are being trained in mental health first aid. This would all have not been possible without the Reimagining Police Task Force, our county executive, deputy county executive, and all our partners, including the Department of Community Health and our staff, who have made this possible. So thank you.
Thank you. That's Michael Orth, who is Commissioner of our Department of Community Mental Health. As we close up this opportunity for you to meet our County Police Advisory Board, and I'm going to leave it to Ken Jenkins to make the final closing comments. I want to again publicly thank Leroy Frazier and each of these individuals for agreeing to serve without compensation to be on this advisory board. This advisory board has responsibilities that are generated by their general working in collegiality with the Department of Public Services, but they also have a responsibility to be responsive to the public when the public has a concern that is raised up. And so we want both of those two functions to be fulfilled in the days to come. This government saw when Hurricane Isaias came through in a windstorm in an August afternoon what we had to do to respond effectively. We saw when Hurricane Ida hovered over our community and gave us flooding that we did not anticipate on a September evening in 21. And of course, the COVID crisis gave us 3 years. It's still with us at some level, but it gave us 3 years of rearranging our priorities. But the important thing isn't that crisis happened. The important thing is how we responded to it, that we responded to it thoughtfully, that we responded to it substantively, and we tried to do that which we could in the short term and then think about the long term. The death of George Floyd on that May evening in 2020, while we were going through the heart of the COVID crisis, was a searing reality for those of us around the country. And we've seen other examples of it in Memphis, Tennessee, and in other places. In the same way, in different level of topics, we see school shootings and issues that arise, and then it gets repeated again and again. We try as hard as we can as decision makers, the Board of Legislators, both sides of the aisle, our executive branch, and those that we involve in government in a voluntary role, to try to be ahead of the game and anticipate the things that we need to do. What happened that day in Minneapolis should have never happened, but it did happen. The important thing to note is that here in Westchester County, we're prepared that it has not happened and we don't intend for it to happen. We have a professional county department of police that effectively protects us. It is why we fund it fully, and it's why we have the kind of safe streets that we have and a reduction in crime overall over the last 5.5-year period of time. But we never rest on our laurels, as was just said. We have to keep working forward, keep trying to be open, and listen to new ideas and listen to different voices. And that's what these group of people have been asked to do. Be open-minded, listen to different voices, determine if there's actions that we can take, suggest legislative policies, suggest administrative policies, suggest executive branch policies. And in doing all of those things, hopefully, we will protect you better, and we will also have a more fair and a more just situation. Ken Jenkins, Deputy County Executive, has done many things in his career, and of course he's involved side by side in every one of these efforts, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to share some thoughts as we close our conversation today. Ken Jenkins.
Thanks, George. And certainly we all want to continue to thank each and every member of the Police Advisory Board that's here for many things. One, for volunteering their time, their energy, their knowledge. You know, you heard today all of the great diversity, not just of individuals by looking at them, but the diversity of the kind of work that they have done that leads to having a better product for us on the Police Advisory Board, and quite honestly for all of the citizens of Westchester County, and setting some national models, as Chair Frazier had pointed out earlier, that we were able to do that. One of the things the county executive's leadership has helped us with, when we first came in 2018, we expanded the board. We didn't change members of the board, and you know, County Executive Latimer says this many times when we talk and we look around how things happen throughout our country, that there wasn't wholesale changes that went on, that we looked at a board and said there needed to be some improvements, but the people that were doing it were doing tremendous work already, and they could just need some extra help and some extra eyes to look at things differently. And this diverse and wonderful group of individuals on the Police Advisory Board shows that combination of both of those things happening at the same time. Many times, when we talk to people out in the community going around Westchester County, I remind people, my father was a member of law enforcement in New York City Police Department. So when we have an opportunity to have an impact that helps people out, and you heard so many different examples, and whether it was a non-human as a horse, or whether it was folks that have taken advantage of making sure that they use our 988 line to prevent potential suicides, or whether they called and had diversion from 911. County Executive and I have said many times throughout the process that we have an outstanding Department of Public Safety that works locally with each and every municipality to make sure that we can provide the best services that we can for Westchester County residents. And this outstanding Police Advisory Board is just another one of those examples of, as the County Executive just pointed out, of listening to the actual members of the community who are volunteering their time month after month and being able to make those decisions to help impact and make Westchester the greatest county could be. With that, I'm Ken Jenkins, Deputy County Executive. We want to thank everyone who participated in today, and for all of you that watched. And certainly you can reach out to us anytime here in Westchester County to hear more. My understanding is the committee's meetings are online, so you can always watch and see them in action. But again, that's because Westchester County is so great because of County Executive Latimer's leadership and great individual volunteers like this. So thanks a lot and have a great afternoon.